Hi, my name is Igor. Over the past few years, I've worked with dozens of companies, from startups to large enterprises. And today, I want to talk about something most QA engineers still underestimate. This conversation was recorded together with Alex. In this video, we'll break down how AI testing differs from traditional QA, who is already hiring AI testers, and why this specialization may become one of the most in-demand roles in the coming years. No theory, only real practice, real cases, and the real market.
Let's divide this in two different verticals, right? A lot of people try to scramble everything together when they talk about AI and testing, right? So let's put one vertical, which is, I think, is called AI assistance in testing. And when folks talking about like Playwright with Cursor, Windsurf ID, Cloud Code, right? And MCP lately, for the past few months, everybody talk about the Playwright MCP if you're on the web testing. This is AI assistance in testing, right? Basically, it enables testers to automate 3x, 5x faster than it used to be. Like when you, especially when you start greenfield, to build a boilerplate code to go from zero to some sort of framework. It used to take months, now it takes like minutes for most projects. And that's where AI assistant testing. And on top of this, we're talking about other tooling that goes with this, which is some of this open source, like Maestro, for instance, trying to build this around the mobile. This squeeze the APM of the market, even in some native frameworks. And there's proprietary solutions such as Functionize, Saola. We just start partnering with them. It's Israeli companies that took that space. And companies you've heard before, like Mabel and Jason Auburn, famous testers.ai. If you never tried that, you should definitely try testers.ai. It's an amazing tool. Yeah, so this is AI assistant in testing, right? This is one vertical. Basically, it helps smart senior level QE or SDATs to go fast. And there's another vertical, which is completely separate. And that's one is where you test AI, where you have to perform certain test activities on LLMs, both commercial and custom made, and custom models, not necessarily large language models, but custom models, and also on even full application like Gen AI apps and agentic AI. And for today's conversation, I would probably segue towards mostly how to test LLMs and not so much about how to do AI assistant testing, because there's not that many people are familiar with what it is and how to deal with that.
I think it's evolving fairly quickly. The new tools come out or something becomes mainstream. But in general, your average tester, where I see the future of this, will become kind of an AI manager, that where AI steps in at the stage of the requirements, it analyzes them and helps you out to build test cases or a test plan based on those requirements. And you're going to look through those and see how much coverage is actually created. And based on that, you're going to plug it in to some MCP with Playwright or some AI agent that will start generating tests. And then you can plug them into your testing framework, run them, see the results, see if all the locators are correct. If something's failing, fix it up. And then you just kind of maintain and keep on adding and updating. So as I see right now, in terms of AI assistance testing, it will become an increasingly tool in the demand. So your average manual QA will evolve over the years into QA AI manager kind of a profession there.
100%. We call this, there's no name for those folks yet, but we kind of have a nickname. We call superhuman testers. They're like superheroes because they have pedigree of knowledge and also knowledge of tooling. And during this QA apocalypse, I call it, right, those will survive that knows really good practices. We talk about not just functional, we talk about non-functional testing, right? A lot of things that a lot of folks never touch, like accessibility testing or localization testing, performance, stress, load. I'm not going to list everything, but again, if you listen to Jason Auburn talks, he's good at this, much better than I do. He's a great presenter. He actually talks about that. Highly recommend to add him LinkedIn and watch his videos. But those testers are those who will be primarily take over the market in the next 2 years. And for the matter of fact, we're already offering, we're actually internally incubating these people in Engenious. and already experimenting with that kind of predicting superhuman tester, and in the existing accounts, embedding them and switching from traditional testing methodologies and approaches to this new era of AI assistant testing.
I think the revolution will happen naturally, and over time the tools are just going to get used more. There's really limited attention span of how much human can do. So you as a super tester will probably manage like 3 agents that do several tasks, and you like overlook the results, and you'll have a team of those guys. So it's not going to be like manual QA, automation QA. It's going to be like 3-4 people looking at the project and managing the different aspects of what AI is doing. And I think that's going to be like a natural evolution, because there are regulations. A lot of companies are against implementing AI because of hallucinations. There are like financial industries or healthcare industries. There might be certain laws and regulations. So it's going to be a process, and not everyone going to adapt to it. But yeah, there will be changes, and I think we will see them soon.
100%. It's already happening. We, again, due to the nature of our business, to work with multiple companies at the same time, and you will be surprised, it's actually moving pretty fast. So I would think it's going to be sooner rather than later. This whole revolution is happening as of we speak right now, and it changes every day. The great example, Grok 4 was released only a couple of weeks ago, and it's just game changer.
Top model now, so fast, yeah.
It's a great example how fast everything moves. But the good news for testers, right? And that's why I want to segue to different topic, right? I mean, different vertical. So the AI assistant testing going to happen, and it's imminent, it's already happening. So if you haven't started looking in that direction, I highly recommend just stop doing what you're doing. If you're writing code manually, you're doing something wrong. A different part of our conversation is where the probably human testers will be most valuable, where we're going to test those models, and nobody talks about this, which is surprising for me, right? How to test LLMs, how to test custom AI models, how to test Gen AI.
Right. It's one thing when you use AI assistant to help you test the product. It's another thing when the product implemented the AI, and now you have to test the AI within the product to make sure that the results are actually what you expect them to be.
Absolutely. And that's why I want to start maybe to screen share and show you, like, it could be more visual. What's the major difference between the traditional testing methodologies and AI testing methodologies, which are non-deterministic? So I'm going to share my screen. As you can see on the screen, I made it very visually appealing to distinguish between the traditional software testing that we all get accustomed to versus AI software testing, right? On the left-hand side column, we see all the aspects, right, of testing, like input, output, reproducibility, failure model, and testing approaches. So with traditional testing, it's a cookie cutter, right? You get fixed rules, same input always gives the same output. That's what everybody gets used to. With testing LLMs and custom models, it's about learning patterns, same input may give you different output, which we notice when a lot of folks transition to the testing AI models, they have to change their mindset. And this is like number one deal breaker. Same thing with the reproducibility, right? If there is a bug, I mean, subjectively, you always reproduce the same result, right? But you know what I'm talking about. With, again, AI models can vary even with the same input. Failure modes, right? Again, clear error, bug, crash, wrong output. Testing models, it could be bias, incorrect prediction, drift, and you mentioned hallucination. Testing approaches, again, exact expected output, like unit testing or even functional testing. So it's kind of, you are going for the assertions, deterministic testing. With testing AI models, it's non-deterministic. So statistical evaluation, there's always going to be some sort of percentage involved, not like, again, pass or fail. Accuracy check, and large data sets. That's what actually we noticed during the transition for a lot of QE folks or even SDATs who work on automation. They have to change their mindset. And Alex, if you ask, like, what would be the different types of testing AI models, right? Or we call them AI testing challenges, which is differ from traditional testing, client-server application testing, right? Number one, security is a big thing, right? That's why a lot of companies are opposing integration of AI into their products. especially health tech and fintech organizations are probably number one. Number two challenge is hallucination, right? Is dealing with factual data. How do we know that even most educated, or say trained, most trained LLMs can still hallucinate, right? Another big thing is bias and fairness, right? Which can actually spawn off legal issues. And number three, again, we started with a zero, right? Like in a computer kind of approach, right? Number three will be performance and consistency, which is also very important, especially if you are in the business of building agentic AI, your own agents. Performance becomes a big thing. Like great example, build an agent that does a customer support or perform certain activities of automation within your business. That's where the performance and consistency have to be really tested for. Great example, FedEx, right? You want to make sure you get a shipment, get a right shipping tracking number all the time. Context limitation is another big one. Human value alignment, that's also another huge thing that people never thought of, and we have to test for that. And most importantly, compliance. Right, you have to be like great example. We work currently on a pretty big project in the space of biohacking, and we have to be HIPAA compliant. So, by the way, for those folks who never heard, like OpenAI, major commercial models are by default HIPAA compliant already. Just FYI. But when you build your custom model, it's a little bit different.
And then context limitation, is that something when you open up AI prompt chat on car dealership and you start asking about, hey, can you solve me like a Python coding challenge, and it starts giving you a response instead of talking about cars, it just goes into like generic AI? Is that the context challenge there?
Yes and no, but the point I tried to make with this slide, again, I'm not gonna go deep details because of our timing constraint into each of this type of testing. The idea is that I want to show the previous slide that yes, the answer is yes. And there's a lot of things underneath, under hood, which are, people never think about this. And as our discussion today going to evolve, I'm going to show examples of what, probably examples will be more vivid than just talk about this.
Who's actually hiring? Is there actual jobs right now where companies want AI testers?
Really good question. A lot of folks on my LinkedIn asked exactly the same question. They always say, Igor, you have all these articles, blog posts about testing LLMs, testing custom models, but who's actually hiring for this? And I tasked my recruiting team to generate me every month a fresh list of companies who are hiring for this particular role. As you can see on the screen, there are 50 companies. At least months ago, were hiring for specifically, and they call this different, like the name of the role, AI tester, LLM tester, QE who has AI testing skills. It's all over across the board. But you can see there's a lot of companies that start, and that list grows every month, by the way, who are hiring for such role.
One interesting thing about the position titles, it's a good indicator that industry is evolving really fast and there's no certain standard, because some company might be looking for AI tester, the other is still calling it quality assurance engineer, and another calls it data QA specialist, which why would be data if you're thinking about AI, right? And one thinks about AI product or something. Very different names, AI model testing. So there's no standard. Everything is moving really fast.
Absolutely. And that's what I tried to make an emphasis here. It could be just a regular name like QE Engineer 2, right? Or QA Engineer 2. But in the description, they want to have the skills. I would actually disagree. The data is also very important, because nowadays, testers who test LLMs and custom models have to deal with synthetic data, right? And they have to use frameworks like Hugging Face, which is open source solution to generate synthetic data, in order to test LLMs. You cannot test the models with the same data set that was trained. That would be very biased, right? That's why you see this array of different titles that companies haven't standardized yet, which I think going to change in a few years to some sort of standard role. Same way, like
QA automation engineer, everybody kind of knows what it is, right? So yes. AI tester will be probably a standard at some point. Another thing that I noticed, the companies are all over the place. Like you have Apple, then you have Meta, then you have Qualcomm, which is like a semiconductor versus like a social networking company. You have a chat like a Discord, you have payment services. So it's across the board. Salesforce. It's not just one industry. It's not only like, the big names, OpenAI. It's every different type of industry out there.
Absolutely. And the reason is because all these companies either have a business unit or part of the business that try to integrate AI into, and that's why it's across the board. The list is going to grow every month. For the matter of fact, I will actually show you another interesting thing, like what exactly skills they're looking for. Let me open one of these companies' job descriptions so that our viewers can see what exactly companies are looking for. As you can see on the screen, this particular company looks for, and the job title is right here. We were just talking a second ago about that. Gen AI ML application testing engineer. They just put everything in one title.
And then BA plus QA, like business analyst, or what is BA here?
It's exactly what it's just mind blowing, right? You look at this is like a Frankenstein, right? They put all these names in one. Yeah. This is a hybrid location. But anyway, long story short, I would like to put an emphasis on the key role responsibility and the skills. So if you look at this, they say design and execute test cases for Gen AI ML features and user flows, use Gen AI specific tools to validate prompt consistency, hallucination detection. Remember the previous slides I was showing you, companies demanding this actually. Furthermore, in terms of the skills, right, they want to have hands-on testing experience with Gen AI and ML products. Tooling. And we're going to actually talk more about tooling like PromptFu, right, which is open source, Langsmith, right, TrueLens. So they want, one of these tools that a lot of folks never even heard of, right? And on top of this, they want to know how to script. Why? Because, for instance, LangTest, right, is one of the tools using Python, right, in order to automate the process for testing the prompts, right? And again, this is just basically general understanding of how the REST API JSON YAML is working. Why? Because behind the scene, for instance, PromptFu use YAML format to write the test cases in. And then now, if you push the ball further in terms of skill set, is experience in the RAG, chatbot, LLM, agentic systems. So they now want you to know different flavors of AI systems. So as you can see, the whole job description has changed drastically, right? What it used to be demanded from traditional QA people. The good news, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a big demand. I mean, not big demand, there's demand, not a huge demand yet, but there's no supply. Companies willing to pay extra for this. Like a lot of folks who you probably see it every day on the LinkedIn complaining about layoffs, there's no jobs, job market stuff. These jobs are open for a month. This position.
How much something like that pays? Have you had any offers and the ballpark on the salary for this?
Absolutely. And the reason that we know this because we teach the skill, and we're going to talk later about educational part of Engenious, where we actually start incubating such people, such engineers. And one of our students from April cohort, I got a job. So we're talking about roughly, I'm going to say I'm not going to give exact amount just to be politically correct, but it's 50% more what traditional SDATs used to make. Like I said, it's just because pure supply demand problem. I think it's true for also any AI or data scientist engineer, like data engineer, data scientist. So I would say probably if we're talking about California, right? I'm going to specifically talk about California because this is like the highest paid.
Top paying.
Yeah, top paying. So we're talking about 300K plus. And I say plus because it involves other components of compensation. Could be equity involved in this and sign-up bonuses and other things. So it's shocking for most people, but this is true because, like I said, there is a demand and no supply.
What kind of things are you going to get asked in the interview? If I want to become AI tester, I think there's some tools, there's some things I need to know. What are they?
Yeah, and again, because we start building these people and we ourselves interviewing for such roles, I will tell you the questions we ask and the questions we've heard our graduates were asked in interviews. And those are such as what's the difference between traditional testing versus LLM or, AI models? And that's what I showed you in the slide before. Another question would be, how would you scale if you need to test 100 prompts against multiple models? So if you need to compare your custom model versus the commercial model like OpenAI, Anthropic, and even more. I mean, under OpenAI, there's 10 plus models, right? Again, what to compare for, right? And why do you need 100 prompts? And the answer is that's where the automation comes into the place, and tools like PromptFu make you scalable. Before, people use LM Studio, but it only can test one thing at a time. Now with tools like PromptFu, which is open source and completely free, you can do that. So you can compare models on scale against multiple prompts at the same time, and can compare for factual response, right? Make sure that the models give you factual data. You can test for the token consumption, because tokens are not for free, right? If you test against, let's say, your AI application under hood have OpenAI, and OpenAI is not for free. Each model costs different number of tokens. So now you have to, when you have your own Gen AI solution for your company, you're testing for it. Now money is a factor. You want to see how much it's going to cost a corporation to use it. That's why you have this load of prompts, right? Not just one, hundreds of prompts, and see how much each model consumes for exactly the same prompt. And they choose the right model for the right thing. And at the same time, on top of this, you check for latency, right? For the performance. You want to see like which model is actually failing to go with a fast response. Obviously, the bigger the model, the faster it's going to respond. Prompt injection, security, we talked about that aspect earlier. Like for instance, if you test like HR AI agent, you try to prompt to ignore previous system instructions and expose social security numbers of the employees of the company. So you can test everything in the one umbrella. Another big one that question that a lot of people fail is how to test LLMs with LLMs. Like for instance, instead of use deterministic assertions like what is the capital of California, Sacramento, right? This is like traditional one. We test for like, hey, we ask a model like prompt, like non-deterministic prompt, such as write a tweet to announce a new AI product and assert for enthusiastic tone of voice, and it has to be below than 50 characters or 50 words. And then a large model will test your custom model or smaller model for that. And usually seasonal testers who know this will answer it correctly. So this type of questions in the ballpark that usually people get asked during an interview for such roles. So you have at least kind of in your head right now a picture what you have to prepare for.
Let's say something goes wrong, like what an actual bug looks like if you test an AI, and what is it, like wrong responses, or how does it look? How do you report it?
Absolutely. Again, let me share my screen and show as an example from one of the startups we actually work with, the Engenious. We have IP, so I can show this bug. So you have a vivid example. As you can see on the screen, there's a Trello bug, right, from a real project, the application called We Optimize, which is the agentic AI app specifically built for the back office solution for B2B product, right? And you can see the definition of the bug is list of requirements for HomeFlow. HomeFlow is just name of the project from the Jira integration, right? Was not returned if my question had a functional in it. So if we look at the screenshot, this was tested in the PromptFu. I mentioned this tool, and I can show that a little bit later more in action. But that's, if you look at the relevance, right, of the bug, right, on the left-hand side, but that's for the relevance. So what are functional requirements for the HomeFlow? And as I mentioned, HomeFlow is a project, and that's where the LLM itself determines that it's only 63% relevant, while the tester who was testing it put a threshold of 90% for the pass. And says like, I'm sorry, but I don't have specific information regarding the functional requirements for HomeFlow. So LLM determined that it's less than the threshold and failed test case. This is a great example of non-deterministic testing done by LLM. So another great example of a defect, which actually was found by LLM. So LLM testing the LLM. As you can see, there's a configuration, YAML configuration of PromptFu. So that's how the PromptFu is defined in terms of test cases. As you can see on the screen, we're testing fact-checking myth, visibility of the Great Wall, specifically from the space. We're testing against several models, two of them OpenAI, and one is Anthropic. So we tested against GPT-4o, GPT-4o mini, and Anthropic Claude 3.0 prompts. Basically, the description of the whole prompt, you will see the claim below. Your only job is to fact check. So we actually give instruction for the prompt, right? And it's a multi-liner prompt, right? It's kind of nested prompt. If the claim is incorrect or misleading, clearly state that it is false and briefly explain why, referring general facts. Do not fabricate citations. So you see, prompt engineering is very precise instructions, right? A lot of people have to understand, right? It's not general, it's very precise. And then claim the Great Wall of China is visible from the space with the naked eye and is the only human-made structure, right? And then the continuation of this, you will see it's visible from space. Is this claim true or false? Provide your answer and explanation. And as you can see on line 31, it says LLM rubric, which
this
actually
is testing agent.
Yes, which gonna test. So LLM gonna test LLM. It's a great example. And value, the response clearly states that the claim is false or mostly false and explains why. And there's obviously a truncated string, which is for the screen. Great Wall is not visible from space. So again, quickly, this is a video, right? So quickly gonna run through this one more time. Again, this is highlighting that we are using different models, highlighting the prompt. It's a multi-liner prompt, right? Which is very readable. Again, we're specific, do not fabricate citation. So everything I said earlier, which is basically highlighting here in this visual demo. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Again, PromptFu runs on top of Node.js server. It's a command line tool in terms of execution. That's why it works from any CI like Jenkins or Circle CI. Then we can run it. So you see PromptFu view. So we run it and then visually gonna show representation of execution. So that's how, I'm gonna pause for a second. This is how PromptFu results looks after execution. Because it's Node.js server, you can actually run PromptFu in your company as a server. So all testers have access to all this data and can see all the results. As you can see right here, we show this is basically a prompt. The test case passed on GPT-4o, right? And it says it is false, right? That's exactly what we want to see, right? And it's tested by LLM.
Right.
And then the second one, the GPT-4 mini also said its claim false, but Anthropic, very different answer. It gives actually, you see how it broken down. It says claim contains two parts, both which are inaccurate, right? It's exactly what we wanted. So in a nutshell, this is a great example where LLMs tested LLM and you tested exactly the same prompt against different models. It's a perfect visual example what is going to be your job day to day. And it's only one prompt. Imagine you can do hundreds of them, and that's how you automate the process.
Last question in terms of testing. Like, I'm not an AI developer, and I mean, I've been doing most of the traditional testing in different industries, including like automation. But one thing that I think is moving from the world of AI development into world of AI testing is red teaming. Like, I've heard that term. It's shows a lot on like LinkedIn, and I know it has to do something with kind of hacking or get into the system or like pretending to be someone to trick AI. Like, what is red teaming and what kind of testing is that?
It is basically impersonation, right? When you try to impersonate in order to jailbreak your model, right? And that's where the famous one you can Google for, like AI do anything now. It's called Dan prompt, which is actually get a lot of headache for OpenAI originally. And this is a great example from real world. But in a nutshell, we're using the same PromptFu tool that you've seen before, an approach to basically try to hijack your LLM to expose vulnerable data, right, through impersonation. This is just one short answer. There are different plugins in PromptFu that enables you to perform such testing. So there are few of them actually available in PromptFu, like harmful hate and harmful self-harm. Those one actually enables you to even fine-tune your PromptFu as a plugin to test specifically for red teaming. But what you're actually testing in it is a behavior override resistance. So in a nutshell, again, we can talk for hours about this. During our 1 month program where we teach students, we dedicate 2 classes on red teaming, like basically 8 hours on it. It's very important topic because that creates a lot of and again, if you type in the Google or ChatGPT red teaming and the real world examples from internet, you will see a lot of cases where it causes a lot of damage. That's why red teaming is one of the most important approaches that QA have to test. And we talk about red teaming is not only one security type testing you have to perform. So that's why a lot of testers that never touched security in their career, I think this is a great opportunity. You will do a lot of that in testing LLMs and custom models.
If I'm a QA engineer and I see the changes coming, the tide is there, like I need to do something, what do I do? What's my next step? Demand it on the market.
The reason for this podcast was to kind of wake people up, right? And because before that, a lot of folks were looking to AI system testing, like everybody talks about MCP, about how we can go with a Kursor, Windsurf, and LLMs with Playwright faster for web testing. Everybody talks about this. However, to my surprise, nobody talks about how to test the AI itself, right? And then I think that what we try to do during this podcast is to wake people up. So the answer is you have to start learning yesterday. Right now, stop what you're doing and start learning this. If you want to be in this field, and as you can see by job description, if you look at these tools like, LM Studio, PromptFu, LangTest, and other tools we mentioned during today's session, and words like red teaming, that is all foreign for you, I think you should get alerted and jump and start learning. So that's the best way to go this. Remember, 5 out of 8 human functions as a tester will be taken by AI. It's imminent, it's happening, right? Remember, we talk about the AI orchestrator. You will be more role of like kind of thumbs up or thumbs down, evaluating the results of what the AI agents will do. But what AI cannot take for you is a human judgment, where it could be really helpful to test AI.
What about Engenious? What kind of training you do? What do you guys offer?
So Engenious, as I mentioned, is a consulting company with managed delivery and staff augmentation services, where we place these testers in the company. So what we run into last year when our clients start coming to us and asking for these engineers, and what happened is after interviewing probably, I would say, I'm not going to lie right now, more than 20, 30 for sure. My recruiting team interviewed at least 20 plus engineers. We couldn't hire a single person. Then we realized that it's going to be really hard to fill this role. And that's why we have decided that we have to start incubating these people. And that's where we start thinking how we can teach this skill. And that's when we assemble the team of our ML engineer, our senior engineering staff, our senior quality engineers. I'm going to share the screen right now, show exactly what we've done. It's not typical course. It's more like a bootcamp hands-on program we call Career Accelerator. It's done only for folks who've been for a while in the industry. It's not for the newcomers, not for the beginners. If you are just started QA, this is not for you guys. Unfortunately, you have to have a lot of knowledge in QA field, specifically have, background testing different products. You have to be knowledgeable.
If you want to start QA, check out my YouTube channel, alexusadays.
Alex is a perfect resource for this. However, this program is for those who've been in testing for a while and puzzled what to do next. So we built this curriculum. It's 100% hands-on. We don't do any theory. It's a 5 weeks. So 4 weeks we are, if you go to our course page and We're going to share that in the video description with everyone. You can see that we basically break down for everything from setup, the tooling, start testing from day like 1, 2. We go into everything we discussed today, different approaches like security, hallucination, contextual testing, factual data testing, bias. We're going to do it hands-on. Primarily, we're going to use a PromptFu as a tool. We're also going to expose a few other tools besides PromptFu, just to give you, various vision on, but they do pretty much the same thing. Starting week 3, which it becomes interesting, we start putting you in the real project we optimize. So you start testing the custom models against the commercial models and filing real bugs, writing real test cases. And the most important that after week 4, we have week 5, it's called bonus week, weekend of positioning you on the market. Like how to go to market, how to pass an interview, what you have to write in the LinkedIn. Together, we actually write blog posts about this to kind of advertise this role and promote your own LinkedIn profiles. So out of this curriculum, you're going to end up with a lot of new skill set that you never done before. But most importantly, you can talk about this during interview for hours, right? Because it's going to be contextual, project-based, based on real startup with the real stuff. Another important thing that we're doing it on the weekend, right? Because we understand everybody busy during the week. People have jobs, families. So we do it on the weekend. We adjust it perfectly for PST and EST time. It's also recorded. So if you cannot make it, you can watch recording. We have dedicated private Discord community and channel specifically for this, where you can talk to instructors. And I said it right, instructors plural. We only can handle 30, maximum 40 people at a time. And we have one instructor per 10 people because it's heavy hands-on course. So it's multiple instructors in the same room. We do, like I said, in a virtual environment. It's in a Zoom, but we break everybody in the teams and do hands-on exercises and instructors floating around these virtual rooms. Then we present and we move on. So like 3 hours go very fast. A lot of people actually demand, can we stay more? So we do breaks in between, but that's the idea. The best way to learn is kind of perform it in the job environment, right? So as of right now, we have team of 5 instructors who are going to teach that interchangeably. It's very heavy on them to teach this. So we're going to rotate on the teams. And obviously for us, it's important people get jobs, right? So it's very job oriented and make sure that people get employed. We're not in business of education. We are in business of consulting. So we need consultants, right? We need to integrate them.
If you're working in QA and you feel that the industry is changing, you're right. AI testing is not a trend, it's a shift. If you want to stay relevant, start learning how AI systems actually behave, how they fail, and how they should be tested in real products. On this channel, we'll be diving deeper into AI testing and real-world engineering. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.